Very good evening. You're watching the Free Press Journal live on YouTube and Twitter. I am Afrida Rahman Ali. The unrest in Nagpur began with a protest that was organized by the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the Bajrang Dal, two right-wing Hindu groups in the Mahal area of Nagpur in Maharashtra. The demonstration centered around a demand to remove the tomb of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb located in what is now known as Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, formerly Aurangabad. So rumors spread, particularly within the Muslim community, that a holy book, specifically the Quran, has been desecrated during the protest. That aggravated matters, with rumors amplified by social media. Now, this is becoming a trend, a rather worrisome one at that, where you have rumors amplified on social media, spreading like wildfire, and then causing irreparable damage to society. This is a glaring example of that, where outrage was incited that led to violent reaction. What we had by Monday evening were clashes that erupted between two groups in central Nagpur, stone pelting, arson, setting properties ablaze, you name it. You know how it goes when there is that sort of a mob running amok. Police personnel also were hurt. We were told over 30 people injured, including senior police officers. So there are two, three kind of narratives now doing the round. One coming straight from the Maharashtra chief minister and other BJP leaders saying that this is premeditated conspiracy. They're saying this using, of course, instances of how petrol bombs were used, and that suggests the degree of premeditation. Then there is, of course, the opposition party Shiv Sena UBT, its leader Aditya Thackeray suggesting that unrest was part of a broader strategy to destabilize Maharashtra. Uddhav Thackeray says it's a double-engine sarkar which is not working in Maharashtra. Yet others point out to a recent film called Chava, which portrays Aurangzeb negatively, and about the sort of violence that Aurangzeb during his tenure unleashed on Maratha leaders, and calling that a possible spark for this public anger. So, to discuss the communal tensions, the party politics, and the sort of narratives that are now doing the rounds, I have with me on the program live Karan Verma, political analyst, a close observer of Indian politics. Karan, good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Afrida. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
I want to understand from a very mature perspective. I just gave our viewers an understanding of the backstory, how this happened, as per reports coming from the ground, the entire sequence. But the question now is that it's an extremely worrisome thing if a small protest can flare up to this extent,
Right.
and then there's the possibility of it spreading to other parts. What is your understanding? Let me first get your initial comments. What is your understanding of the Nagpur violence and the riots?
So, Afrida, I am appalled and I'm not surprised at the same time because we saw similar protests and similar calls for violence back in 2021 when Aurangabad's name was changed to Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. In fact, there was Sartan Se Juda chants across the city. There were arrests at that point of time. And it's disheartening to see that someone like Aurangzeb, if he evokes this kind of emotion, I mean, it's very clear as per various writings, as per his own autobiographies about how gruesome of a person he was, what he resorted to, the kind of atrocities. If people are going to rally around him and cause this kind of arson and violence, it's shocking to say the least. I mean, where are we going with this? Because to be honest,
But why are you saying people are rallying around him? The trigger point was protests, was a rally to actually destroy Aurangzeb's tomb. So it's not like the trigger came from groups that support Aurangzeb,
So
is
a
it?
protest, according to you, a
Hmm.
legitimate protest can be a trigger
Hmm.
point for a mob to resort to violence and arson of this nature? I mean, are we going to cushion this sort of
Hmm.
violent behavior just because there was a legitimate protest? And why not, to be honest? Why should we
Hmm.
be celebrating someone who has resorted to the kind of gruesome things he's resorted to? And it's well
No,
illustrated
no,
in
but
his
who
own
is
memoir.
celebrating? Who was
No,
celebrating
why do we have
Aurangzeb
a
to
tomb?
begin with?
Why do we have his tomb? Why should we have his tomb where
Hmm.
someone like
Hmm.
Akbaruddin Owaisi goes, reads the Fatiha, and says he's a
Hmm.
Rahmatullah Ali? Why should we have this kind of eulogizing behavior for someone like Aurangzeb, who has murdered
And since
Hindus
you
and
bring up Owaisi, let me play out what he said because I don't want to put him out of context or anything. So,
Hmm.
since you are bringing him up, this is
Yeah.
what Asaduddin
स्टेटमेंट्स
Owaisi, the
महाराष्ट्र
AIMIM
के
leader,
सरकार के
said about
मिनिस्टर्स
this
और चीफ
conflict.
मिनिस्टर तरफ से आ रहे हैं, उसको देखने की जरूरत है। और सबसे बड़ा प्रोवोकेशन तो वो सत्ता में है, गवर्नमेंट में है, और गवर्नमेंट प्रोवोकेटिव स्टेटमेंट्स दे रही है। और बड़ा अफसोसनाक है, आप देख लीजिए पिछले 4-5 दिन पुराना स्टेटमेंट उठाकर देख लीजिए, तो ये खुद इनकी वो खुद प्रोवोकेशन किए और उनको इस बात की अपनी जिम्मेदारी का एहसास भी नहीं है कि वो मंत्री हैं, मुख्यमंत्री हैं। और दूसरी बात यह है कि आपने कई तस्वीर किसी बादशाह के बनाकर जलाए पूरे महाराष्ट्र में, कोई रिएक्शन नहीं हुआ, तो आपको तकलीफ हो गई। तो आपने क्या किया कि कुरान की जो आयतें हैं, जो वर्सेस हैं कुरान के, जो एक कपड़े पर लिखी जाती हैं, उसको आपने जलाया। और जब ये हरकत हो रही थी तो उसी वक्त जाकर मुकामी वहां के जो मुसलमान और हिंदू लोग थे, जाकर कंप्लेन की डीसीपी को कि इसको रुकवाइए, देखिए ये जो कपड़ा है जिसपे कुरान करीम के आयतें लिखी हैं, वर्सेस लिखी है, मत करिए। जलाया गया, एक्शन नहीं लिए। उसके बाद शाम में ये सब चीजें हुई। मैं उसका कंडेम करता हूँ वायलेंस का, मगर इसको टोटल देखिए आप कि जो स्टेटमेंट्स एमिनेट हुए हैं, जो स्टेटमेंट दिए गए हैं मिनिस्टर्स की तरफ से, अभी भी दिए जा रहे हैं, भाई आप रूल ऑफ लॉ को फॉलो करिए ना। आप तो भारत के संविधान पर आपने ओथ लिया है, तो आप कैसे प्रोवोकेटिव स्टेटमेंट्स क्यों दे रहे हैं आप? भाई मुझे किसी चीज कोई चीज पसंद नहीं है, आपको कोई चीज पसंद नहीं है, तो कोई भी अपनी नापसंद का इजहार कानून को हाथ में ले करेगा क्या? ये देखने की जरूरत है। तो ये बहुत गलत हो रहा है, सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है, ये सरकार की गलती है, इंटेलिजेंस की फेलियर है। उस जगह जहां से महाराष्ट्र के मुख्यमंत्री आते हैं, और ये जो वायलेंस हुआ है हमारे केंद्र मंत्री के घर के करीब है पूरा, ये बड़ी गलत बात हो रही है।
So, Karan, the point that he is making is that effigies पहले भी जलाए गए, इस तरह का flare up नहीं हुआ. So he is blaming the government also for fueling the fire, not the government particularly, but certain leaders of the BJP and the leadership in Maharashtra for fueling the fire. How do you respond to that?
So, Afrida, of all people, I think Owaisi is the last person who should be talking about provocation. I mean, look at the kind of speeches he makes in Hyderabad. And then this typical Jekyll and Hyde personality, when he comes to Delhi, he suddenly turns sugar-coated when it suits him. We remember the kinds of provocative calls he made for Kamlesh Tiwari, which eventually resulted in his beheading. The kind of rhetoric he resorted to when Sambhaji Nagar, when Aurangabad was renamed to Sambhaji Nagar, it was Owaisi's party's people who resorted to the streets calling for Sartan se juda. It was his corporators who were arrested at that point of time. So, of all people, Owaisi is the last person to be preaching on that. Having said that, you are right, there should be a rule of law. Of course, we can't but let's not, give a free pass to the mobs who are resorting to this. Just because there is a legitimate protest, and I believe it's 100% legitimate to call for the removal of Aurangzeb's tomb, there should not be a tomb of a man who, by his own father's account, was so cruel that he said, even Hindus are better than you. You've killed my son and handed me over his head. He's the person who killed Guru Tegh Bahadur, one of our revered gurus. How can this man ever be celebrated? How can people say that he is
But the
Rahmatullah?
tomb has existed over the years, Karan. So now you're saying, what? Why now? Why has this issue suddenly come up and is becoming such a communal issue right now, tearing two communities apart? It's always existed. It's been there. Nobody woke up to this. Do you think the movie Chava has to do with it? What is the reason the matter has come up now so aggressively that you are saying that why should the tomb be there? Prior to this, even you were not saying this.
No, I was always saying this, Afrida. If you ask me personally, I think it was a shame that it ever existed, to put it mildly. How we had Aurangzeb Road, and when even that was renamed to APJ Abdul Kalam Road, who we all celebrate, even then there were certain political parties who protested against it. The Congress, when Aurangabad's name was changed, the Maharashtra Congress chief Balasaheb Thorat, he went on record and said, I don't agree with what has happened. He said, this is so wrong. Why do this? I mean, we have to correct historical wrongs. It's all about truth and reconciliation. We must accept that here is a man. I mean, this is looking into the face of the Hindu community and saying, we are going to celebrate someone who mass murdered you. We're going to celebrate someone who destroyed your temples, got the remains of it in the Jahanara mosque and made sure people trod on it. So this kind of barbarian, we have to we have to obliterate such tombs. Of course, we have to do it
But
constitutionally.
the same community never raised this issue earlier. There were Hindu communities who were living in Aurangabad. They never raised this issue earlier. That's what I'm
They
asking
did.
you. That
They did.
somebody has gone and provoked this issue now for the matter to reach such a crescendo. It was never raised earlier, or people were not aware. Were people not aware that there was a tomb there?
Well, our history, we know how our history has been whitewashed. I mean, how certain people have been given a clean sheet. And I think in the digital age, yes, awareness has risen. And as you said, people were probably sleeping over it. I mean, they've woken up from slumber, but now, at least now, we must correct that. Now that we know the truth, we should not unsee it. That's what my request would be. But yes, we have to do it with caution. We have to do it making sure that law and order situation isn't disturbed. But such people need to be booked. How can you resort to arson just because there is a protest happening? I mean, you can't call anything a trigger for this. There cannot be any trigger or justification for violence and arson and burning of vehicles and attacking the police officers. So I
Yeah.
personally
So
feel there
there
should be.
I would say that social media amplification might have had to play a role. There might have been a burning of an effigy which was projected as burning of the Quran, which obviously, let's face it, would cause communal tension if a holy book is burned. So that is understandable. What I'm saying is that this amplification with fake news and lot of these bigots jumping into the fray, Karan, don't you think that's a very dangerous trend? And I don't think you should. I think you should condone that as well. That there are people out there, fringe elements, who are
Hmm.
jumping into the bandwagon, amplifying this sort of a thing where a effigy was burnt, and they will make it about something else, which aggravates a certain community deliberately. Who are these people?
I think those are the perennial mischief makers we have. And
Hmm.
I personally feel they are at times patronized by many of the political parties. I mean, to be honest, the BJP, the current dispensations, got a massive mandate in Maharashtra. And
Hmm. Hmm.
pretty much the opposition is reduced to the periphery
Hmm.
now. I mean, so there could be certain elements who want to see the law and
Hmm.
order situation disturbed. Of course,
Hmm.
you're right in that regard that the government also needs to tread with caution. I mean, law and order is the responsibility of the state, but there's a
Yeah.
certain level to which the state can go. We also want the citizens to cooperate, and we
Hmm.
must ask the civil society also certain questions. I mean, who are these
Hmm.
people rallying behind? If there is a protest happening for the removal of someone's tomb, here is a man who was a bigot not just to the Hindus. He killed his own brother Dara Shikoh. When we talk of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, Afrida, the man who came up with the term Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, Manjumal Behreen, was Dara
Hmm.
Shikoh. He translated our Upanishads into Farsi, named it Sirrai
Hmm.
Akbar. And this man was called a kafir. He was beheaded, paraded around the town naked, and his head was handed over to his father Shahjahan, who said, "Tumse much behtar to Hindu hote hain." So he is a man who should
लेकिन
be
अब
used
जो ये
as.
पुराने जो कहानियां जो एनिक्डोट्स अभी सुनाए जा रहे हैं लोगों को, तो क्या ये बहुत डेंजरस नहीं है, करण? बिकॉज आई
It is.
फील yes, injustices have happened in the
Yeah.
past. There is not one but multiple
Can I
injustices
make a
have
point?
happened in the past. How
Hmm.
can you go about correcting and avenging each one of them now? Where will this end?
So why should we connect that to the Muslims today? I believe there is no connection between them. That's what my message is. That here is
Hmm.
a man who was a bigot, full stop. Today, Muslims, as Muslims, we have common heroes. We look up to Veer Abdul Hamid. We look up to Brigadier Osman, who gave up his life for our country in the 1965 war, in the 1948 war. We look up to people
Hmm.
like APJ Abdul Kalam. Those are the kind of heroes we celebrate universally. There is no religious element to it. That's why it's important to communicate that. That here is a man who was a bigot, period. You know, yes, he had pathological hatred towards the Hindus, but he didn't even spare the Muslims. And why should today's Muslims be the coolies of Aurangzebs and Baburs?
But let's be fair here. The Muslims out there were not going and protecting the tomb. They were aggravated probably only because of this fake news of the Quran being burnt. Let's
I
face it.
disagree.
Let's not
I
call them,
that
somebody people who are rallying around Aurangzeb. They were not. It was a sort of a
they
deliberate
were.
attempt to fuel communal tension. And I blame those elements who are doing this deliberately. And therefore, the question of law and order comes in.
Afrida, I beg to differ with you on that because there have been a lot of elements on record, in fact, political parties who've gone on to eulogize Aurangzeb and rally behind him. I've been on several debates where people have said he was a benevolent king. They've tried to rewrite history saying he was a great man, he was a ruler, he ruled for 50 years. Asaduddin Owaisi happens to be one of them. Akbaruddin Owaisi happens to be one of them, who goes to his tomb, reads the Fatiha there. I mean, that's some strong signal that he sent, Akbaruddin Owaisi, last year. In 2021, as I told you, on 8th January, it's Balasaheb Thorat, Maharashtra Congress chief, who's gone on to say that we have respect for Aurangzeb, and the town should not be renamed as Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, even though he was in alliance with UBT at that time.
But none of that incited riots. None of those provocations.
At that time also, when the renaming happened, there were many people of AIMIM who were arrested. They made Sartan Se Juda chants. So Aurangzeb, unfortunately, they propped up as this Masiha, who is a rallying call for certain people, and that should be rebuffed. That should be rebuffed, plain and simple, because here is a bigot, and he's admitted it in his own writings. He's admitting it. His own biographer Saki Mustad Khan, he writes how he's killed people, how he's decapitated them. So why should that be a rallying point? I think we need more debates and awareness for that.
But Karan, let's come to the present day situation. Are we going to allow this kind of violence and stone pelting and arson to happen? We've just about managed to get some peace in Kashmir. Do you want Maharashtra now to flare up in this manner? On the law and order question, I'm going to come to you, because I'm going to play out what Mr. Pawan Khera said, because now they are questioning the double engine sarkar in Maharashtra.
महल इलाके में दंगा भड़का है। नागपुर 300 साल पुराना शहर है, और इस 300 साल के इतिहास में नागपुर में कभी दंगा नहीं हुआ। ये हम सबको ये सवाल पूछना है कि आखिर ऐसी स्थिति क्यों बनाई गई। दोनों जगह, केंद्र में भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी है, राज्य में भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी है। विश्व हिंदू परिषद और बजरंग दल ने अगर एक प्रोटेस्ट का आयोजन किया किस मुद्दे को लेकर, औरंगजेब की कब्र को हटाने के मुद्दे को लेकर, तो क्या सरकार ने पूरी व्यवस्था, कानून व्यवस्था बनाए रखने के लिए कोई इंतजाम नहीं किए थे? मैं, कांग्रेस पार्टी, हम लोग सब नागपुर की जनता से एक अपील करते हैं कि शांति बनाए रखिए। ये जो खेल खेला जा रहा है, 300 साल पुराना इतिहास को आज एक मुद्दा बनाया जा रहा है, इस खेल का शिकार न हो, शांति बनाकर रखना ही हम सबके हित में है। कुछ राजनीतिक दल ऐसे हैं जो भड़काते हैं और उनको लगता है कि उनका राजनीतिक हित इसी से सध रहा है। ऐसी राजनीति से हम सबको बचना है और शांति हम सबके लिए बहुत आवश्यक है।
So two things are being said here. One is that provocative statements are coming from the ruling dispensation, which Avesi also said. The other thing that is being said is, if there was a protest organized by VHP and Bajrang Dal, it was the local administration's responsibility to ensure that such a protest happen peacefully and things don't go awry. So there's a failure of the state administration there, correct?
Okay. So the first thing, I don't agree with the first part of it, that why now and why, have a demand of this sort. I believe it's a perfectly legitimate demand. The protests, we have a right to protest and ask for something peacefully and constitutionally. The second part, I do partially agree that the police could have done better, the state government could have done better to ensure law and order situation. But let's also put some accountability here. Who are these people who are getting so riled up with a protest asking for the removal of a tomb of a bigot that they are resorting to stone pelting? It's not the...
No. That is where I'm correcting you. They're not riled up by that. They got riled up because somebody spread a rumor about creating a holy book and burning a green cloth with a kalma. That rumor aggravated things. Not so much the protest for removal, right?
No, I disagree with you on that, because even before that, Aurangzeb was a highly polarized topic for them. It was a rallying call. And even if there was a rumor, nobody gets the right to resort to this sort of vandalism. So it's there that we also need to put accountability. This Sartan Se Juda culture, this Sartan Se Juda chant, we need to come very hard on it. Very hard on it. And this should happen across all political parties. The Congress, for example, took back cases of those who chanted Sartan Se Juda in Hubli in Karnataka. AIMIM has gotten away with it so many times. So these political parties also need to come together with the state government. Yes, the state government needs to take accountability if the law and order situation is spiraling. But the Congress party cannot add fuel to the burning fire and then say, oh, why are you not able to extinguish the fire? So that's the
No,
kind
but
of
Congress is
role Congress
saying
and
Nagpur has
AIMIM have.
been peaceful. Nagpur has the RSS headquarters. Nagpur is the
Yeah,
home town of Devendra Fadnavis.
yeah.
Nagpur, of course, is a epicenter of RSS and BJP in that sense, and there are many tall leaders coming from this area. So there is a sense of responsibility that is expected out of these powerful leaders, union
I agree.
ministers,
I
that
agree.
that there cannot be a situation of this sort of violence and clashes, irrespective of which community is responsible. The clashes have happened. People are injured. Officers are injured. Even the deputy commissioners have got injured. So wouldn't there be a sense of responsibility that the leadership has to take for it, for the violence, irrespective of who has indulged in it?
So we can't make it irrespective, Afrida. I agree with you that the accountability finally rests with the state government on managing the law and order situation and dissipating the tension. I agree with you on that part. But we also have to understand that if there are political parties who are patronizing elements that resort to this sort of vandalism, then they also need to be put in the dock. They also need to be asked, why do you entertain such elements? Why do you take back cases of those who chant Sartan Se Juda on the streets? Why are you rallying around Aurangzeb, and why are you not making a call to those who consider Aurangzeb as Rahmatullah Ale, who consider Aurangzeb as their hero? This also needs to be nipped in the bud. I agree with you. Yes, Nagpur BJP is in power and they need to put this in place. But it's also the citizens. I mean, if we citizens start picking up arms, we can't blame the state government beyond a point. It's the responsibility of we citizens also to have some decorum. And if those citizens are going out of hand and they are backed by certain political parties, that also needs to be put on record.
Right. Let me play out a couple of other sound bites. I'll come to you for closing comments. This is what Aditya Thackeray had to say earlier, of course, holding the current government responsible. And we'll also play out Ramdas Athavale, who has a different take on it. First,
Yeah.
let's listen into Aditya Thackeray on the entire issue. To unmute this, please.
Congress and your party and NCP, Swaraj parties, workers were pelting stones and they have proof. The BJP is shameless about this because this incident has happened in the hometown of the Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Sadly, when the BJP cannot govern, they resort to violence, they resort to riots, and this is their set formula in every state. If you look at Manipur, that is exactly what they want to convert Maharashtra to. Today, no investment wants to go to Manipur, no tourist wants to go to Manipur because of the violence. This is what they want for Maharashtra, and when they cannot govern in Maharashtra, when they have incapable leaders like the ministers they have in Maharashtra, they want to create riots in a state. They are trying to dig up history of someone who lived 300, 400 years ago, but they cannot speak about the future, they cannot speak about the present. The irony in this is, the grave is protected by the central government which belongs to Mr. Modi. If Mr. Fadnavis has the courage, he should call up Mr. Modi, go to him and request him or ask him to remove the grave of Aurangzeb and the issue is over. But the BJP is trying to hide the fall of the Sensex, BJP is trying to hide the fall of the Nifty, the BJP is trying to hide the way migrants were sent back from America in shackles, the BJP is trying to hide the unemployment, the farmer suicides in Maharashtra, the BJP is trying to hide misgovernance in Maharashtra, which is why they are going back to Aurangzeb. You are insulting.
Let's listen into Thavle as well. I know you would have something to say on Aditya
शांति
Thackeray.
रखने की आवश्यकता है, वहाँ कोई की मांग है भी, क्योंकि छावा फिल्म देखने के बाद औरंगजेब ने जिस तरह संभाजी महाराज को मतलब उनकी हत्या की थी, उसको देखकर लोगों में थोड़ा सा बहुत बड़ा प्रक्षोभ है. इन सभी आंदोलन करते को हमारा कहना है कि भाई शांति रखने की आवश्यकता है, वहाँ कोई लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की स्थिति निर्माण ना हो, शांति के मार्ग से आपको मांग करने का अधिकार है. लेकिन जिस तरह मतलब ये इशू लॉ एंड ऑर्डर का है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के कब्जे में ये पुरातत्व डिपार्टमेंट है, उसके अंतर्गत वो खबर आती है, तो मुझे लगता है कि माननीय देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी जो मुख्यमंत्री उन्होंने भी अनाउंस किया है और उनकी पूरी रक्षा करने का प्रयत्न वहाँ की सिक्योरिटी कर रही है. लेकिन इनको मांग करनी है, उनको शांति से आंदोलन करने का अधिकार है, हिंसक आंदोलन नहीं होना चाहिए.
लेकिन
So basically, he's an ally of the current BJP, who's also saying that the current leadership is responsible, and he's definitely bringing up the fact that the movie has incited these sentiments. I want you to respond to that as well as to what Aditya Thackeray said before.
So I'll respond to Aditya Thackeray first. I think we've just had an election in Maharashtra. So, all issues, he was talking about issues that are being camouflaged or, being uh, taken off under the carpet or something. But all of these issues have just been discussed threadbare. We don't, as such, have a situation where, inflation or unemployment is spiraling out. I mean, if we just look at recent data, it's not that bad. Yes, there has been correction in Sensex and Nifty, but that's a part of the cycle that happens. So I don't think it's a diversionary tactics, because there are no elections around the corner where Aurangzeb is that emotive an issue. So I don't think that's what the government is resorting to, but he was right on the last bit of it. He said if they really want to remove it, Devendra Fadnavis should approach the Prime Minister and get it
Yeah.
done. I agree with him on that. I absolutely agree with him that now it is the responsibility. We have a double engine sarkar there as per their
Yeah.
own version.
Yeah.
So please get it done. Absolutely,
Yeah.
please get it done. That I agree with him on that point. And as far as Ramdas ji was saying, I think I agree with what Ramdas ji said. He said that Chhawa film probably was that spark that was needed. Could be. I mean, this has always existed in historical records, to be honest. I mean, that's why we had the change of name from Aurangabad to Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar or Aurangzeb Road here in Delhi. But could lead to a further increased thing. And the protests have to be civil. But to be honest, Afrida, I don't think the Protestants resorted to violence. And that's what's important. If the protest triggers someone to a point where they resort to violence, it's those people who also need to be put in the dock and accountability needs to be fixed. And that is where I think the opposition needs to do a job. Why should a legitimate protest? I mean, we've seen people talk about Shaheen Bagh protests, which were, by the way, unconstitutional as per Supreme Court because those were blockades, or the farmer protests. Why not have a protest for a legitimate demand? Why should they be attacked with sticks and stones and weapons and everything? That is also what needs to be questioned here. Can the Hindu community, if I may put it Hindu community, though I think Aurangzeb is hated by everyone in that sense, can't they have a legitimate protest asking for the removal of a tomb? They can. So I think
they're asking the Prime Minister, they're asking Devendra Fadnavis, by the way. So that way this protest should be up. This protest is an appeal to the current leadership. It's not against anybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why should someone be triggered then? Why should someone attack them with stones? Why should someone burn the vehicles? Is it out
That's
of love?
That's what I'm saying. There was a mischievous, there were the mischievous elements who came in. Otherwise, if this is a legitimate protest, as you're calling it, if there was permissions given for this protest, nothing should have gone out of hand. But yes, if some elements out there have decided to trigger a larger violence, deliberately have incited the other community that your holy book is being burned, that is a dangerous thing that has happened. And it is something that is likely to happen in these sort of protests, which is why the government should have been careful, which is why there should have been intel inputs. And I appreciate that you agree that in a matter like this, it is very much at the Prime Minister's doorstep now to kind of take a step on it. It's protected by the Archaeological Survey of India. Remove the tomb. I mean, just get over with it once and for all. Do you think, the last question to you, do you think Government of India will take such a step? And what will it really take for Mr. Modi to take such a step? Will protest really implore him, or there will be something else that will have to be done in order to make that happen?
I think time is ripe for such a move to be taken. I think time should not be wasted anymore, to be honest, because in our great country, we have a lot of icons that we can celebrate, that all communities look up to, like APJ Abdul Kalam and Veer Abdul Hamid. So there's no place for an Aurangzeb tomb here, if I may say so. And I think the Prime Minister should act on it very quickly without wasting time.
Right. Karan Verma, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time and your insights on this topic. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave you with the statements that have come from the Maharashtra Chief Minister on this issue, and also some other leaders of the state who have spoken out, including Milind Deora and Eknath Shinde, the Deputy Chief Minister. Let's first begin with Devendra Fadnavis' statement.
जिस प्रकार से तनाव की स्थिति निर्माण हुई, ये बहुत ही निंदनीय है। जिस प्रकार से कुछ लोगों ने पत्थरबाजी की है, पुलिस पर भी पत्थर फेंके हैं, ये बिल्कुल गलत है। मैं स्वयं इन सारी घटनाओं पर नजर रखकर हूं। मैंने पुलिस कमिश्नर को ये कहा है कि कानून व्यवस्था बनाने के लिए जो भी कड़े से कड़े कदम उठाने की आवश्यकता हो वो उठाए जाए, और शांति को बनाया जाए। अगर कोई दंगा करता है, कोई पुलिस पर पत्थर फेंकता है, कोई समाज में तनाव निर्माण करता है, तो ऐसे सभी लोगों के ऊपर कड़ी से कड़ी कार्रवाई की जाए। और मैं सभी को अपील करता हूं कि नागपुर एक बहुत ही शांति प्रिय इस प्रकार की नगरी है, यहाँ की शांति भंग न हो, इस प्रकार से सभी लोगों ने व्यवहार और बर्ताव करना चाहिए। और कोई भी अगर इस प्रकार से तनाव निर्माण करने का प्रयास करेगा तो उसके ऊपर बहुत कड़ी कार्रवाई की जाएगी।
देखिए, मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूँगा कि आज हम छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की जयंती दिनी मना रहे हैं, पूरी महाराष्ट्र में मना रहे हैं। हम राष्ट्र स्तर पर इनकी लेगेसी को हम मना रहे हैं। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर यदि कुछ लोग महाराष्ट्र में खास करके उनको अभी भी छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज और औरंगजेब के बीच में क्या अंतर है, उस अंतर और फर्क के बारे में उन्हें कोई जानकारी नहीं है, मैं आपके माध्यम से उनसे निवेदन करना चाहूँगा कि उन्हें वापस स्कूल जाना चाहिए, जल्द से जल्द छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज की हिस्ट्री के बारे में पढ़ना चाहिए। और उभाटा जैसे पार्टियाँ, उनसे महाराष्ट्र की जनता को कोई अपेक्षाएं नहीं है। महाराष्ट्र की जनता ने एक बार नहीं 2 बार उनको सबक सिखाया और एक बात को स्थापित किया है कि आज महाराष्ट्र में एक ही शिवसेना है जो शिंदे साहब के नेतृत्व में धनुष्यबाण का सिंबल है, जो बाला साहेब ठाकरे जी के विचारधारा को, उनकी जो लेगेसी को, विरासत को आगे ले जा रही है। तो इन पार्टियों के बारे में हमें कोई टिप्पणी नहीं देना है। ये पार्टियां पूरी तरह से, उन्होंने बाला साहेब ठाकरे की विचारधारा के साथ, हम मराठी में शब्द का प्रयोग करते हैं, तड़जोड़ किया है, समझौता किया है, और इसलिए महाराष्ट्र की जनता ने उन्हें सबक सिखाया।
कांग्रेस के एक लीडर हैं, वो कह रहे हैं देवेंद्र फडणवीस को कि ये रिलीजियस के आधार पर पॉलिटिक्स चलाते हैं और ये बिल्कुल औरंगजेब जैसे हैं, क्रूएल शासक है।
देखिए, ये जो लोग यदि किसी ने ऐसे कहा होगा तो एक बात साफ है कि उनको औरंगजेब और छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज के बीच में जो अंतर है, उनको इस अंतर के बारे में कोई जानकारी नहीं है, इसलिए वे ऐसे बयान दे सकते हैं। आज मैं विश्वास और गर्व के साथ कह सकता हूं कि महाराष्ट्र सरकार, देवेंद्र फडणवीस जी, एकनाथ शिंदे जी, अजीत पवार जी के नेतृत्व में एक बहुत ही बढ़िया सरकार चला रहे हैं। महाराष्ट्र देश का एक प्रकार से एक आर्थिक इंजन है। उस आर्थिक इंजन को अधिक मजबूत बनाने के लिए साथ में मिलकर आपसी समन्वय के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, सकारात्मक काम कर रहे हैं, राज्य को आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। और हमारा एक ही उद्देश्य है, राजनीति नहीं करना चाहते।
कंडक्ट जो है उनको बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। जो भी समाज कंटक जिन्होंने पुलिस पर हमला किया है, आम जनता के ऊपर हमला किया है, माँ बहनों पर अत्याचार किया है, पेट्रोल बम फेंके हैं, पत्थर फेंके हैं, हथियार से हमला किया है, उनको बिल्कुल महाराष्ट्र में बिल्कुल माफ नहीं किया जाएगा। हमारी महाराष्ट्र सरकार की भूमिका है या महाराष्ट्र में अमन शांति कायम बनाए रखने का काम है। और इसलिए मैं जनता से भी अपील करूंगा कि पुलिस अपना काम कर रही है। पुलिस सख्ती से गुनाहगारों को जो समाज कंटक है उनसे पेश कर आएगी, उनको कड़ी कार्रवाई करेगी, लेकिन पुलिस को भी जनता ने सहयोग करना चाहिए, यह भी हमारी अपील है।
बयान आता है, क्या पैटर्न उनके ऊपर कुछ कार्रवाई की जाएगी?
अबू आजमी को तो निलंबित कर दिया है, दोबारा ऐसी नौबत न आए, ऐसा काम वो न करे। और औरंगजेब का समर्थन इस महाराष्ट्र में कोई सहन नहीं करेगा, उसका महिमा मंडल कोई सहन करेगा नहीं। ये औरंगजेब, ये छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज बनाए रखने का काम है। और इसलिए मैं जनता से भी अपील करूंगा कि पुलिस अपना काम कर रही है। पुलिस सख्ती से गुनाहगारों को जो समाज कंटक है उनसे पेश कर आएगी, उनको कड़ी कार्रवाई करेगी, लेकिन पुलिस को भी जनता ने सहयोग करना चाहिए, यह भी हमारी अपील है।
बयान आता है, क्या पैटर्न उनके ऊपर कुछ कार्रवाई की जाएगी?
अबू आजमी को तो निलंबित कर दिया है, दोबारा ऐसी नौबत न आए, ऐसा काम वो न करे। और औरंगजेब का समर्थन इस महाराष्ट्र में कोई सहन नहीं करेगा, उसका महिमा मंडल कोई सहन करेगा नहीं। ये औरंगजेब, ये छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज, छत्रपति संभाजी महाराज और हमारे देश का दुश्मन था, वो देशद्रोही था, ये जुल्मी आक्रमणकारी था, माँ बहनों पर अत्याचार करने वाला था, मंदिरों को तोड़ने वाला था और छत्रपति संभाजी महाराज पर अन्याय अत्याचार करने वाला था। ये महाक्रूर कर्मा था और इसलिए उसको बिल्कुल उसका समर्थन जो भी करे उसको बख्शा नहीं जाएगा।
शिवसेना की मांगनी करता है नागपुर में सर, क्या मंत्रियों के खिलाफ
ये जनता ये जनता की भावना है, ये जनता की भावना है। देखो, जनता की भावना हमारे राजा के प्रति, छत्रपति संभाजी महाराज के प्रति बहुत ही गंभीर है और इसलिए उन्होंने जो आंदोलन किया है वो आंदोलन जायज है। उनके मन में जो है हमारे राजा के प्रति प्रेम भावना है और औरंगजेब के प्रति जो देशद्रोही है उसके प्रति गुस्सा है।
सर, पुलिस पे हमला हुआ है, पुलिस पे हमला हुआ है, सोची समझी साजिश।
देखिए, ये पुलिस पर हमला करना, पेट्रोल बम फेंकना, पत्थर फेंकना, हथियार से हमला करना, पुलिस के ऊपर हमला करना, फायर ब्रिगेड के ऊपर हमला करना, ये सोची समझी साजिश है और इसीलिए जो सोची समझी साजिश से कानून व्यवस्था बिगाड़ने की कोशिश करेगा, कानून जो भी हाथ में लेगा उसको बख्शा नहीं जाएगा।
माझे जुने व्हिडिओ बघ ना, तू रोज तो बघतोस आणि फोन करतोस।
भाजपाला महाराष्ट्राचा पेटता मणिपूर करायचा,
काय काय
भाजपाला महाराष्ट्राचा पेटता मणिपूर करायचा।
अरे जाऊन दिलं, पेटवणं आणि त्याचा काय संबंध रे बाबा? पेटवणं आणि ज्यांनी हे प्रश्न पेटवण्याचा विचारला त्याचा काय संबंध?
लेकर क्या कहेंगे? विपक्ष आरोप लगा रहा है कि हिंसा जो है,
माझी लिंक तुटेल तो माझी हिंदी तुला परवडणार नाही।
प्रदर्शन कर रहा है और ये कह रहे हैं कि नीतीश राणे जिस प्रकार से भड़काऊ भाषण देते हैं उस वजह से।
कहाँ बोला आपको?
सीढ़ियों पर,
सीढ़ियों में। अभी कल गेट ऑफ इंडिया के सामने खड़े रहेंगे, आप मेरे को सवाल पूछेंगे? अरे हाउस चालू है, विधानसभा का हाउस चालू है, तो हाउस में अगर इस बारे में अगर मेरे नाम लेके अगर कोई मांग हुई रहेगी तो उसके ऊपर बोलने का मेरे को अधिकार है। कोई गेट ऑफ इंडिया, लिंकिंग रोड, इधर खड़ा रह के कोई मांग करेगा सिग्नल पे, तो मैं थोड़ी उसका जवाब दे।
मुख्यमंत्री कहते हैं कि ये सुनियोजित तरीके से किया गया दंगा है, उप मुख्यमंत्री ये कहते हैं कि ये सुनियोजित तरीके से किया गया दंगा।
देखिए, ऐसा है, हमारे राज्य के मुख्यमंत्री और हमारे उप मुख्यमंत्री एकनाथ शिंदे जी ने इसके बारे में अधिकृत निवेदन, ऑफिशियल निवेदन किया।
ये देखिए, तलवार से तोड़ा है, ये पूरा तलवार से तोड़ा है। हम 1.5 घंटे से फोन करे जा रहे हैं यहाँ पर खड़े होके अंदर में, पर पुलिस की एक भी टीम नहीं आने को तैयार है, ना कोई एक व्यक्ति आने को तैयार।
घरों को नुकसान पहुंचाया गया, उनको गाड़ियां जलाया गया और बहुत ही गंदी गंदी बातें बोले गई जो मैं आपको मोबाइल पर नहीं बताना चाहता।
ये नहीं हुए सब भाई बहगी थे। मुझे बहुत अफसोस है, दुखी हूं मैं कि आज वो नागपुर जहां कभी भी सांप्रदायिक दंगे नहीं हुए, सब भाई बहन की तरह से रहते थे, उस नागपुर में इतना बड़ा फसाद हो गया, कितने लोगों को चोट आ गई। बस मैं एक ही बात कह सकता हूं कि हमारा देश गंगा जमुनी तहजीब का देश है, किसी के भड़काने में मत आइए। रमजान का महीना है, मैं तमाम लोगों से कहना चाहता हूं, तमाम हिंदू मुस्लिम भाइयों से, कि हमें शांति बनाना है, देश को आगे बढ़ाना है, तो आपस में लड़ाई नहीं होना चाहिए। मैं निवेदन करना चाहता हूं कि सब लोग शांति बना कर रखिए और आपसी भाईचारगी को बढ़ाइए। कानून हाथ में मत दीजिए, कानून अपना काम करेगा। इतना बड़ा वाकया हो गया, इतने लोगों को चोट लगी, अब कानून तो अपना काम करेगा, लेकिन इंसाफ होना चाहिए।
साहब ने कहा है कि ये बहुत रिग्रेटेबल है, बहुत दुख की बात है कि स्टेट एक्सचेकर से औरंगजेब के कब्र की देखभाल करनी पड़ती है।
आप सत्ता में हैं, आपके जो आइडियोलॉजी है उसको बाजू रखिए। आपकी आइडियोलॉजी होने चाहिए भारत का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और रूल ऑफ लॉ को अपहोल्ड करना। 6 दिसंबर 1992 को क्या हुआ और उसके बाद सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसको एग्रीगियस एक्ट कहा है, तो आप देख लीजिए, हुकूमत आपकी है, मंत्री आप हैं, रूल ऑफ लॉ आपको फॉलो करना है और आपको कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के लिहाज से अपनी हुकूमत चलाना है।